breakfast.
Oh, good morning, and welcome to Comics for Breakfast. Today's episode is a bit of a grab bag, but hey, grab bags are usually fun, right? Well, unless you get a rock or something. What do you suppose Charlie Brown did with all those rocks that he got? I like to think that he returned them a little later on that night via the offender's windows with extreme prejudice, but I'm sure he just sat at home and let his dog push him around. What a blockhead. When it comes right down to it, there's no tried and true formula for producing a successful superhero. One can emulate, evoke, or downright rip off any popular comics character, but the chances of your product, no matter how similar in name, tone, and packaging, actually matching your inspiration's success are very thin indeed. We've seen men of power, of wonder, and amazement, but in spite of their name's synonymity, it's always Superman who comes to mind. Even creations inspired by the animal kingdom struggle with this dichotomy. There's more failed critter-based heroes and villains than successful one. Take cats. For every popular feline character like Black Panther, Catwoman, or Wildcat, you have a score of unsuccessful kitty-themed characters like the Jaguar, Tiger Man, and Marvel Comics' The Cat. Now, created to tie in with the women's lib movement of the early 1970s, Beware the Claws of the Cat was meant to be part of a new wave of more modern Marvel comics, but the book only managed to limp to issue 4 before being canceled, and that was with a year-long hiatus in between 3 and 4. Now, I've covered this series more extensively here, so for this look, we're just focusing on the comics and none of the behind-the-scenes stuff, okay? Midnight finds our heroine, Greer the Cat Nelson, tooling around out on Lake Michigan in a stolen motorboat. She quickly comes under fire and has to abandon ship and is caught by some swarthy pirate types. We flash back to earlier in the day where Greer was out on a date with the dude whose boat she just blew up. Her cat senses detected sonar waves while swimming underwater, and she decided to investigate later that night, but before she could, she was captured and unmasked. I guess that's okay. Strangers learning your secret identity doesn't really matter all that much when they can't identify you. Greer is taken back to her captor's underwater base and interrogated, but our heroine quickly escapes. Simultaneously, the defenses of the base are breached by an unknown invading party. The cat gets her can in gear and makes it to the control room just in time to encounter Commander Kraken. Fret not. He simply has need of your stately dome. And because nobody asked him ever, Kraken relays his entire life story, most notably getting his ass kicked up around his pointy ears by Namor the Submariner. He has need of your undersea dome, and if that isn't cryptic enough, why, he'll use a squid glove hand on you. The cat ain't having it, though. If anyone knows where the canned tuna in this place is, it's him, so Greer fights on her abductor's side. We get a nice several-page action sequence from Patty Greer on layouts and Bill Everett on inks. It's a pleasing combination, all the more so thanks to Stan G's Soul Train-era color palette. The Kraken escapes, the cat makes nice with her one-time captors, and we get this weird reveal. So are these guys meant to be cats? Bats? If so, why are they underwater? My questions and Greer's go unanswered as the base rises from the ocean and flies off into space, presumably never to be seen again. I picked this book up because it reminds me of that brief window in time when, as a young reader, I didn't know what to expect from comics. I couldn't get angry about storytellers breaking the rules or violating canon because I had no idea what any of that stuff was. I was just reading the comic to be surprised and entertained, and this book manages to do a little bit of both. Next up is a special request from Patrick Heward. Now, Pat asked me if I was familiar with the DC Comics anthology Time Warp. I knew I had a copy somewhere. I went plunking through the archives, and when I found it, I thought this would be perfect for breakfast. So put on your environmental regulators, head to the transporter bay, and set your phasers on fun. Our first story begins with a man-made solar holocaust unleashed upon the Earth. Wait, I thought these were supposed to be fun. I guess that bit comes later. Commander Jake Saturn has taken control of the Kronos satellite and channels the sun's raw power into a merciless beam of destruction. He's doing this ostensibly to stop an alien invasion, but I guess channeling solar death is a bit like Pringles. Once you've popped, you can't stop, and by the time Jake has popped, 5 billion Earthlings are dead. Jake's rationale for the total annihilation of the human race is that Earth was in the midst of an alien invasion. Better for all to die than live under the slimy heel of the oppressor and all that. I don't know about you, but I'd rather take my chances with the aliens, thanks. His wife isn't so sure either, but she and her young son are stuck up here and everyone else is dead, so she clams up and plays nice. Eventually Earth freezes over and Jake takes up painting. Somewhere along the way he manages to have sex with his wife again and gets another puck past the goalie, so to speak. She's pregnant, and there's another sexless painting-filled lull before we see the kids again. It's years later, and it turns out the satellite is now malfunctioning. It's time to head back to Earth, bits of which Jake has obligingly thawed out for his progeny. He sends them off in a ship with the promise he'll be right behind them. But there is no second ship. Jake has decided to die here, and his wife chooses to stay by his side. This is just as well, as she dodges the horrifying reality that in order to repopulate the planet, her children need to become man and wife. The story wants to gloss over this little factoid, but geez, that's kind of a hard one to give a pass to, especially with a grinning bust of old Dad here, eternally looking on. Happily, Steve Ditko is brought in as a palate cleanser here for the mating game? Oh God, are all these stories about doing it? When does the aforementioned time warp happen? Backstage at the club, dancer Mona is getting ready for her date with Roger. Okay, sure. Roger's a first-class creep who's only interested in insects, but hey, he's loaded. The other dancers laugh, and one mentions she wouldn't care if he ate bugs. I don't have a joke for that. I just like the idea of their date night. Roger has a great idea for his date with Mona. He's bought her a new bathing suit, and maybe they could go to the beach. Mona obliges, but Roger's other obsession shows up to make things awkward. Roger is a brute and gives Mona a poke in the puss, but what's good for the geek is good for the gawker, and a muscle-bound stooge, Dawn, steps in, socks Roger, and sweeps Mona away. And it looks like it's a love connection. Things get hot and heavy pretty quickly. Say, how do you reckon she keeps those things on anyway? Mona gathers all her friends together for a big date with Dawn and his pals, and hey, looks like they have wheels. Turns out this gang of dudes, well, they're actually aliens who've come to our world to find hot dates. They take them back to their planet, and, Larry? Meanwhile, back on Earth, old Roger is doing all right for himself after all. I'll give the guy a big hand. Next up It's just another doomsday for the planet Earth. We blow ourselves up real good, but there's some sort of temporal anomaly that protects a crazy old man and his two comely teenage daughters, Chastity and Felicity. The guy is obsessed with wrath and righteousness and carries a gun in case he needs to scrag some heathens. Hey, that looks pretty heathenistic. Shoot it! Oh, hell, wait. They're everywhere. Jeez, this could get sticky. Felicity is caught up by one of the tentacled beasties and dragged off, so Dad decides to shoot her instead of ending up having to buy a whole bunch of gifts for orange-headed grandchildren at Christmas. Charity intervenes, causing Dad to miss and hit the creature instead. We discover that the whole thing was a big mistake. Mars didn't want our women. They were just trying to evacuate our survivors. Whoops. Anyone else starting to pick up on the grim tone here? Well, if we check out the ad on the next page, we can see that that's just what our pals at DC were going for, a kind of sci-fi horror fusion a la EC Comics. Considering how big sci-fi was back in 1979, it seems like a reasonable gamble, but these stories are such downers, and we haven't even hit the halfway point yet. Thankfully, it's terrifying Tom Sutton's turn up at bat, and he delivers some diabolical goodness in the form of The Survivors. It starts out as a beautiful day for Laurel until she receives some unexpected news. She takes it in her stride. Hey, this is Laurel we're talking about, folks. She catches up with her boyfriend and clues him in. Laurel has been drafted to fight the monsters native to the latest human-colonized planet of Murg. Now, I don't want to sound like a know-it-all here, but with a name like Murg, you should probably expect some monsters. Here, known as the Smellies. Laurel is put through a test to see how she would react when confronting Smellies, and she attacks without quarter. She's perfect for the part. Laurel gets a complete and total makeover, but instead of just doing away with her roots, they turn her into one of the Smellies. Her job is to infiltrate and figure out just what it is these boogers are up to. She witnesses one of the baby Smellies accidentally kill itself, and she begins to have second doubts about her mission, but these are quickly forgotten. It turns out the Smellies are hep to the Earthmen's deceptions, and reveal there's no reversal for the process to turn Earthlings into Smellies. Despondent, Laurel decides to take everyone out by releasing pent-up volcano gas from a nearby boulder, which kills pretty much everything. She drags her carcass back to the base where she discovers the gas has transformed her back into her normal self, as well as killing all of her fellow humans. Whoops. Laurel finds Brad, and hey, big surprise, he's a smelly infiltrator. But Laurel, being Laurel, just kind of rolls with it. She picks her slimy boyfriend up, dusts him off, and it's time to get busy repopulating the planet. See, I told you all these stories are about doing it. Moving on, and it's another day, another alien invasion. An unnamed race pilot their weird craft directly into the heart of New York City with the intention of conquering all. They begin to pick up local transmissions from the surface. The Earthmen are aware of them. Worse yet, they know exactly where the invader's ship is. As the alien craft draws closer to the city, it becomes clear the Earthmen not only anticipate their arrival, but they're ready for it. Powerful forces batter the ship as the aliens close on the city, thousands of crystalline forms that mirror the aliens' own strange geometry swarming to attack. As we pull back, hey, turns out the ship was just really tiny and got lost in a New York snowstorm. Well, better than being swallowed by a dog, I guess. There are more stories in here, but I think we all get the point. Unlike the feel-good sci-fi of Star Wars or Close Encounters, all of these tales are bleak and broody. It's a fine choice to make on a story-by-story basis as a creator, but having 8 of these in a row as a reader is a grim cocktail indeed. I think in this instance, the only thing that might lift my spirits is an Archie. More specifically, Archie's Girls, Betty and Veronica 117 from September of 1965. Although this comic should be called Betty Has Lost Her Damn Mind, because, well, Betty has lost her damn mind. I get that she's obsessed with Archie, but surely there are limits. We begin with a Veronica story, almost as if to get her out of the way so we can cut right to the crazy. While on a date with Archie at the movies, Ronnie drops a diamond bracelet in the dark and is unable to find it again. Archie admonishes Ronnie for not wearing junk jewelry on her date, a concept the classy Miss Lodge has never even heard of. Arch takes her to a department store for an object lesson, but this only incenses the easily riled Ronnie. She threatens to call the police on the store manager, then mixes her real pearls in with the store's display of fakes to make a point that I'm not entirely clear on. When neither of them can tell the real pearls from the fakes, Ronnie simply buys them all and takes them home to her father, who can tell a match set at 50 paces. Archie is ordered to get rid of the imitations, and America's favorite teener does what he does best, tricks young women into kissing him. How hasn't this kid been locked up by now? Seriously, look at the effect he's having on our daughters. Instead of focusing on their studies or sewing poodles on their skirts for the sock hop, they're fighting over this lightweight Lothario. I mean, I could see them going for Reggie Mantle. Now that guy's going places. But no, instead the girls fight over someone who tries to hide from his problems by pretending to be a lamp. You can do better. This goes for Big Ethel, Midge, Miss Grundy. You can all do better. Sorry, I'm raving. Betty makes a bet that she can identify Archie no matter what ridiculous disguise he's wearing, then proceeds to doubt her innate lunacy. It hasn't steered you wrong yet, sister. We get some funny gags leading to this truly odd moment. Man, if only there had been one more page to this story, huh? Miss Cooper's rainbow of mental illness is on full bloom in Colors on Parade. Here, Bet's as the perfect outfit to wow old Archie. Somewhere. Her desperate need to please, coupled with her chronic eavesdropping, leads to a dizzying rotation of dresses, but if she'd wanted to catch Mr. Andrews' eye, she should have just showed up in this white bikini. The kid is picky, but he ain't dead. In the end, Betty goes with an all-black number, but decides to hedge her bets, showing up ready for any eventuality. In the interest of equal time, Veronica is the focus of another story. Betty discovers her ravishing rival upside down. Veronica uses this technique, and I'm not kidding, to drive the blood to her head. Joke all you want, it's got to get there somehow. It's a beauty technique she uses to keep Archie interested, like breathing. But it turns out there's a weird quirk. When Ronnie's standing on her head, she speaks upside down. True to the form of one who doesn't believe it and can't do it, Archie is quick to move and exploit it. Why, this could be his ticket out of this crummy town. With this kid, the sky is the limit. Broadway, circuses, vaudeville. Archie moves to inform Mr. Lodge of his intentions to monetize his daughter, but discovers the weird apple doesn't fall far from the freaky-ass tree. I love this period of Archie. Post-Beatles, but before the Sugar Sugar single, when the book was still focused on teen shenanigans. The scripts by Frank Doyle are breezy and fun, with all of the characters speaking in clear and unique voices. The girls are a far cry from carbon copies of one another, each one unique and pleasing in their own right. The art is by Dan DiCarlo, although it hews closer in style to previous Archie artists like Harry Lucy. In a few years, DiCarlo's would become the house style, but for now he's a team player, delivering another great-looking book. I'd like to thank you for joining us this morning. If you enjoyed this breakfast, please consider supporting our work by buying a t-shirt or tossing a few bucks in over at our GoFundMe page. It all goes right back into producing the kind of content that you can only find right here on the Old Guys Who Like Old Comics Network. I'm your host, Jason Mink, and I hope to see you next week at breakfast.